My name's Jon Dalton. Welcome to jondaltonjazz.com. One of the questions that people often ask me when they hear my records or come to the live gigs is, how do you get that jazz guitar sound? And it's a kind of a difficult question to answer, but I thought one way to approach that would be to let you know about some of the instruments that I play and, just give you some ideas about my general approach to the music. The first guitar I want to feature is this one here, and this is a Gibson L5, and this is the Wes Montgomery version of the Gibson L5. I'll explain what that means in a minute, but I just wanted to let you know that the L5 was probably the first jazz guitar ever made. The earliest incarnation of the L5 came out in 1924, and it was invented by a guy called Lloyd Loar for the Gibson Corporation. That guitar was 16 inches across, so it's slightly smaller than this one. And then in the 1930s, the guitar grew to 17 inches, and this is a 17-inch L5. Bear in mind that the instruments that I'm talking about were completely acoustic at that time. They had no pickups, no electronics. They were designed to be loud and to project the sound out into the audience without amplifiers and that kind of thing. Towards the end of the 1930s, this feature started to appear on the guitars. That's the cutaway, and the first L5 with a cutaway was called the L5P for Premier or Premier, and that name was later changed to L5C for L5 cutaway. You can still buy an acoustic guitar called the L5C from Gibson, probably on special order and probably quite expensive, but as far as I know, the acoustic version of this guitar is still available. Anyway, let's fast forward to 1951, when the L5 first received electronic pickups. The original L5 was fitted with two pickups, kind of like this guitar here. You've got a bass pickup for picking up the warm sound near the neck. This is where the strings make a nice warm sound. And you also have a treble pickup up here, and this picks up the brighter sound near this, which is the bridge of the instrument. The original pickups were single coil pickups, which had a very bright, piercing kind of a tone. The disadvantage with that kind of a pickup is that it's very susceptible to picking up noise from things like fluorescent lighting, refrigerators, AC units. So around about 1957, a gentleman by the name of Seth Lover invented this kind of a pickup. It's called the humbucking pickup, and it's called that because it has two coils in it, two magnetic coils, which for those electronic techies out there, you might understand that they're wired, two coils are wired in series but out of phase, and this in effect cancels out the bad frequencies. And the pickup was called the humbucking pickup because, well, it just bucks hum, so that was the whole idea behind it. So that was 1957. The guitar by then looked pretty much like this one here. You've got a cutaway, you've got two pickups. It was called the L5 CES. The C stands for cutaway, the ES stands for electric Spanish. So the L5 CES stays in production to the present day. Very little change from that 50s variant. The model that you see me playing here, this is the Wes Montgomery version of the L5. And Wes was one of the greatest jazz guitarists of all time, certainly one of my favorites, very popular in the late 50s and early 60s. And he ordered a short run of guitars from the Gibson company, very much like this one here, where he dispensed with the additional bridge pickup, which most of us jazz guitar players don't use. So you see this just has one pickup, picks up the warm sound near the neck, and it only needs one volume and one tone control to operate, whereas this guitar needs two, one for each pickup. As you can hear, the guitar has a beautiful warm fat jazz sound. Really pure, really sweet. The guitar is made of the finest woods available. The top is made of solid spruce, which is carved into this kind of an arch shape. I don't know if you can see that there. The back is made of beautiful flamed maple. You can see the flame of the wood here. Hand carved from solid blocks of wood. And the same goes for the sides here. All the metal parts are gold plated. It uses the finest materials available, and I think the L5 is the king of jazz guitars. is certainly one of my favorites. The only downside to an instrument like this, because it's so acoustic in its nature, it has such a lovely acoustic tone, it's very susceptible to picking up its own sound from the amplifier. I'm going to show you what I mean by this. Of course it won't do it for me now. Oh, there we go. And that gives you a phenomenon called acoustic feedback, which is something you don't really want if you can avoid it. That's the problem with these highly tuned, highly carved guitars, whereas an instrument made from, say, a laminated wood or a plywood is much deader and much less susceptible to that. So that plus the cost, an instrument like this can be very expensive. Those are the downsides, but the upside is that if you are lucky enough to own a Gibson L5, then basically you own the king of jazz guitars.